Hey, it's Cal here. Just wanted to do a quick video of like kind of connecting the ancient world and the new world right now, or like the modern world, and then connecting those two, and then moving into the new world. So I'm just kind of like thinking alcohol kind of came up as like a thing to speak about, kind of just how my morning was because I'm at my parents' house. My brother's here, and my brother's not like a big drinker, but he drinks almost every day. So that was just kind of like how my morning was. And it's like 2:30, and I was like really happy and excited to sing. It was a bright, bright, sunshiny day, and there's like rainbows coming in through the door, and it's just beautiful, you know, afternoon. And it's so I was like singing, I could feel the sun outside, and it was like, open up the blinds, let the light in through the windows, and it's like, yay. And so I felt really good. But my brother's like, oh, don't sing, my girlfriend's downstairs sleeping. It's like, she works at a bar, so she stays up really late serving people booze and stuff. And I'm thinking like, well, like that's the last thing we need is bubbling drunks, walking around, or like let alone people to serve them the booze. And so it made me kind of think like the history of alcohol. And I used to brew alcohol, like brew beer and make a little bit of wine. And I used to be kind of, when I was 21 to like about 24, I was like kind of drank way too much, learned my lesson really quick, and don't drink anymore. And really am a happier person because of it. And I feel like I learned my lesson really quick. But my brother's still kind of a drinker and unhealthy, overweight. My dad's like still can't let go of those college years of frozen pizza and Husker games. And it's like, I kind of empathed all that. I think that's why I really got caught into that. And now it's just I've really stepped outside of that, and seen it from a different perspective. It makes me think about the ancient world and how alcohol was related with the ancient world, because like the Egyptians, what they would do is they'd take their little, they didn't really have yeast to make their bread expand, but there was still yeast in it, so they had like this really doughy, dense bread. And they would take that bread and they'd stick it in like clay or ceramic pots and let it sit out in the sun all day. It would ferment, and it would make a beer, which would be probably like I don't know, like 3 or 4 pints of beer. Like see this glass up here? That's a pint, right? So like 4 of those probably, but it would be like 3% alcohol, right? It'd be like 3% alcohol, and so it's like maybe even less, maybe like 2%. But it wasn't very strong. It was less than like a light beer or like a regular beer. Way less, like half of that. And so they'd work all day, and then at the end of the day they would drink it. Maybe not every Egyptian, but that's kind of like the norm of it. And so they drink it with a straw too. So like they'd get drunk really fast, but it was so little in alcohol that it is just their tolerance wasn't up. It didn't really affect them, well, from this perspective, affect them really negatively. And it's just the idea of alcohol was just different. Whereas now it's so much stronger. You go to a bar, someone serves it to you, you work your ass off at a job that you hate, and then it's like you like drink the booze to feel better. Whereas the Egyptians, it was more of, I don't know, what was it? I mean, the Egyptians, they had their celebrations and their parties. Like they had this one that was like to praise like this goddess, and like it was all about the Egyptian beer, and like to praise like this goddess, where it like turned into like a huge orgy. It was, it sounds weird, but I mean like that's just one thing the Egyptians did, because they weren't really, their ideas of this stuff was different. Where, gosh, it seems like it's so all the same, but it's just different. But to smudge away from the Egyptians and their whole goddess god orgy party scene, and working all day and having their fermented beer that fermented all day and drank after work, whatever. Enough of that. If you look at in Africa where they have palm wine, so what they do is they climb up to the palm trees and they poke a hole, have the sap, and stick something made to like contain like the sap from the palm tree, and then the bees come in and carry yeast, and it ferments, and it takes about a week or two for it to ferment and to make wine, palm wine. And so like you think about the ideas of alcohol and stuff, and it was because there's not capitalism. They all had to make it themselves, and so they understand where it came from, and it like alcohol's natural for one thing. Let's not confuse that with and it is a drug. It affects your consciousness and it affects your psychology and your neurology, and it's a poison. It's a toxin, and you know like it's not very healthy to consume it all the time, or it's not very healthy to really consume it at all, as far as I'm concerned, from my perspective now. But I look back at the ancient world is it was different because it wasn't always available. They had to allow the natural laws of nature and to create it themselves, which kind of created this buffer zone in this period where it was like you couldn't just you couldn't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the store and buy a beer." It's like, "Oh no, I gotta wait 2 weeks for the yeast to ferment the palm sap to make this wine." I gotta wait for the bees to land. I gotta go climb up this tree, poke a hole in this tree, let the sap kind of drain into this, let the bees come in, carry some yeast, and then ferment it. Or I gotta go climb up into this tree, take out a bunch of honey, and then mix and then put this honey into a pot or a bucket or whatever and allow it to ferment. It takes like 5 or days or more. That's kind of like how I started when I was a kid. I was smart. I was a creator. I was really creative. I was like, well, crap. I kind of want to try some booze, but I don't know how to get booze. So, like, I went to Walmart. I got bread yeast. I got sugar. I got water. I put it in a 2-liter pop bottle, and then I let it ferment. And it would take like 10 days to make it something that would get you a buzz, or to be alcoholic. So it takes some time. You have to have patience, and it's like for someone to be an alcoholic, like they don't go a day without drinking. And so it's like that's like in the natural world, that's like impossible to do. You have to wait for nature to take its course. So it's like there's a natural buffer zone where this isn't really going to harm you. There's not really going to be any addictions or habits or problems with this. Same goes for tobacco. Like the Native Americans, there was a season where it wouldn't grow, so they probably either have to save some, or they'd probably go through a period where they wouldn't have tobacco. And so nature has its natural ways of these natural, I guess you could say medicines, but natural gifts from the earth. And I'm not saying to go out and use any of these. I'm just trying to look at the perspective of the ancient world and to connect this to the new world, because through the meditations that I do, through the breath work, through the throat singing, and all this stuff, I can get so I guess high in a way, but like I can affect my psychological chemistry, my hormones, my neurotransmitters, my neurology just from singing and stuff, which is way through yogas and meditation, which is way easier than consuming something that is detrimental to your health, whether it is a little bit or not. Like the Native Americans, it was like a prayer in their mouth with tobacco. They wouldn't inhale it. Maybe they did a little bit. Maybe some of them did, but it was like a prayer in their mouth because they knew it was unhealthy. And it was like the nicotine and the other uh, alkaloids of the plant would absorb through the capillaries in their mouth, and it would still give them an effect, and it'd make them really grounded. It would have a very grounding effect. And so that's why they use that. It would help them ground, and they also would use it to bring two individuals that disliked each other together because it would help open them up and stuff like that. So I just wanted to share some of that information and have more of an understanding of the ancient world and the new world when it comes to the botanical and use of plants as teachers. Not all plants have to mess you up or give you some sort of effects like that to be a teacher plant. Broccoli can be a teacher plant because it can teach you about health and what is healthy. And tobacco, I feel like, is a plant of self-control to teach you self-control and stuff like that, but it has multiple things. And so I just kind of wanted to share that because there was a period of my life where I had consumed a lot of like natural. I was like a shaman as a kid, where like I like consumed like natural plants and stuff, and was like went through like a shaman phase when I was in high school, and then the doctors had me on pharmaceutical medication. So it was like I studied like neurology when I was in high school, and like the chemistry of the brain and like how all the neurotransmitters work, and so like I became really smart through trying to figure out the pharmacology of what like all the doctors were, all the pills and stuff the doctors were trying to give me, which medications ridiculous. That is just purely to make money, to control people. Like I'm not saying to go stop taking your medicine, but I'm saying if you take medicine, I'm just saying like it's rather ridiculous that it's not natural. There are more natural things out there that can help us, but like capitalism, the pharmaceutical companies try to push those down. I can't remember which was the one that they just banned. Kratom, and I did take kratom once, and it didn't give me an effect. And to be honest, not really interested in that kind of stuff anymore. But it was like kind of a period of my life, and it was like, oh, okay, I'll see what this does. I'd been afraid to do it before because I was on medications and the interactions of them. So I was like, oh, I'll give it a try, and it just didn't really do anything to me. But apparently, kratom is really good for antidepressant, like uh, pain and stuff that a pharmaceutical company is going to rather want to prescribe you an opiate analgesic or get you on some serotonin reuptake inhibitor drug, which is going to fuck with your brain chemistry way more than a natural plant, a natural leaf called kratom, right? So the drug companies like ban those because it affects it's like competition to them, and people can grow those plants themselves. Like it comes with like cannabis. Cannabis has been suppressed for so long because of so many uses, and I'm not advocating the use of it. I'm just trying to get people to see this perspective. And to be honest, I see a lot of people distracting themselves with the cannabis plant, and I think it's rather silly. Um, I mean, because I feel like it has its healing benefits, but it's has like this coyote energy, like the trickster, like it's a distraction. Like it's a distraction for a lot of people. And if someone's awake, if someone's an indigo child or has an active third eye, if they smoke pot, they are going to go nuts and crazy. They're going to be tripping balls. I'm just saying, because that's how it is for me. That's why I don't like to use that plant. That's why it's just like, and people that aren't awake don't understand that. They're like, oh man, it's the best thing. Not everyone, but I've had those people in my life. Like, it's like the best thing ever. It's like, but it's not.